You're watching a recorded session from our virtual conference, Freelance Fest, brought to you by Top of the Funnel. Freelance Fest featured amazing sessions on everything from cold pitching and building a freelance pipeline to optimizing your LinkedIn profile. You can watch all of those sessions here on our YouTube channel, so be sure to check those out and subscribe. But I also want to invite you to become a member of Top of the Funnel. You can join over 4,000 writers, freelancers, entrepreneurs, and marketers who ask questions, share feedback, post pet pictures, find work opportunities inside our Slack community. It's 100% free to join. Just visit jointofu.co and sign up. Enjoy the workshop. Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to my workshop, Breakthrough Bylines. Really excited to get into things today. Let me jump right into a quick intro. My name is Tyler Hakes. If you're not familiar with me, I've been working in content marketing for about 15 years. Previously worked in-house marketing teams. I was freelance for a while, worked at some agencies. And in 2016, I started a company called Optimist, content marketing agency. We've grown that now to about 25 team members. We work with around 15 clients and do about 1.5 million in revenue. We've been lucky to work with some really cool companies like Gusto and Superhuman, ZoomInfo, HelloSign, Content Stack, Sendbird, etc. And in 2018, I actually started this community, Top of the Funnel, which is putting on today's event, Freelance Fest. If you're not already a member of Tofu, by the way, check it out, jointofu.co. We'd love to have you. All that said, let's get into the topic for today, which is how do you bridge this gap, right? So I think many of the folks that I talk to in Tofu are sort of early in their career, they're maybe kind of in a middle portion of their career, but they're still kind of scraping by. They're working with a lot of clients that are maybe not ideal, or they're still taking on content mill jobs, things like that to pay the bills. And they're looking at these other freelancers who are working with these big name companies like HubSpot or Zapier or Buffer. And they're just wondering, like, how do I go from here, where I'm at now, to there, where they're at? And what was their process like, and how did they achieve that level of success? So today's workshop is all about answering that question in as much detail as we possibly can cover in 20 minutes. So let's jump right into it because there is a lot to cover. The short answer to this question is credibility. Okay, so the thing generally that holds folks back from working with these big name companies is they just don't have the level of credibility that they need to pitch and land work for these types of companies. Now, why is that? What is holding them back from building that credibility? Generally, three things. Okay, so number one is they don't have any bylines that they can show in their portfolio. This is a common issue that I hear from a lot of folks is, hey, I've worked with agencies or content mills in the past. I've done all this work, but it doesn't have my name on it. I don't have any bylines, or I've signed an NDA and I can't disclose this work. Something is sort of keeping you from being able to share the work that you've actually done and showcase your abilities. Number two, the client work that you have done is simply not up to the standard that you want to showcase. Maybe you're working for rates that are lower than what you'd like. And so the work that you're doing is just not, a true reflection of your abilities as a writer. And so when you go to pitch other clients, you don't feel very confident about the work that you're showing them. Number three is that you're just working with sort of unknown clients. They're not really impressive logos to add to your portfolio. They don't really impress prospects or sort of showcase the level of your skill and talent and where you're really at in your career. So what we're going to talk about now is, okay, so knowing these barriers exist and knowing that we need to gain that credibility in order to go and pitch and land work with these clients, how do we actually do that? What are the steps involved? So I set out to answer this question about 4 or 5 months ago. And I decided that what I was actually going to do was go talk to as many of these freelancers as I could possibly get time with. So I talked to some really successful former freelancers and current freelancers, Chima Meje, Kieran Shahid, Lizzie Davey, Ankit Vora, a bunch of really smart folks who have been really successful as freelance writers, specifically in the B2B SaaS niche. So if you are not familiar with these folks, they all have, in my opinion, pretty impressive resumes. They have really well-known companies in their portfolio. This is just a sample of some of the companies that these freelancers have written for. Buffer, HubSpot, Zapier, Shopify, CoSchedule, Semrush, Klaviyo, you name it. Basically any sort of top tier B2B SaaS client, one of these 6 freelancers has probably written for them. So ultimately, my goal with interviewing these folks was to figure out their process. How did they go from their starting point, which, by the way, they started most of these folks started in a very similar position where, hey, they were sort of working for low paying clients or taking on these low paying gigs, and they were looking to level up their career as well. And ultimately, they kind of figured out a path to do that. So here's what I learned in the process of interviewing these folks. Lots of strategies work, right? So every freelancer had their own journey, and they would use different strategies to kind of help them along the path. I heard everything from personal SEO and just ranking #1 for B2B SaaS writer to posting on LinkedIn, getting referrals, past relationships or previous employers, cold pitching, warm pitching. Again, it really spanned the gamut. But ultimately, I was trying to find kind of the signal in the noise there. And so I didn't want to just say, hey, there are a bunch of different ways, pick one. And so what I zoomed in on was, what was the most common theme in these discussions and in these interviews? And I really figured out that about 60% of the freelancers I talked to actually mentioned one specific strategy, and they mentioned it specifically as sort of a turning point that really helped catapult their career. So here's the strategy: strategic guest posting. Okay, so the rest of this workshop, I'm going to be talking about the process of using guest posts as a way to build that credibility, get the bylines that you need to confidently and consistently pitch those high value clients and land that work. Okay, before we get into it, I'm going to make a quick detour and make some notes about free work. Okay, first and foremost, guest posts are generally unpaid. So when you pitch guest posts, usually they're not paid. In some cases they are, just depends on the site and the publication that you're pitching. In general, I am not an advocate for free work. I recommend that people never work for free. If a client asks you to do anything for free, I don't subscribe to that philosophy, et cetera, all those disclaimers. That being said, I do think as a freelancer, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, sometimes working for free can be a strategic advantage, right? And specifically, if you're doing something that is potentially unpaid, but it's going to provide value for you in some other way to advance your career or land better clients or make more money in the future. In my opinion, that's an investment. Now, again, I know that's not for everybody. Some people are firmly in the camp that, hey, I'm not touching the keyboard unless I'm getting paid to do it. I totally understand that. So that strategy is not going to work for everybody. No matter what the case is, I think you go into this process with very clear expectations around what work you'll do for free, what that might entail, and you set boundaries for how much work you're willing to do for free. And again, I would never work for someone who asks me to work for free. I only think it works in the case where you're in control as a freelancer, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. All right, disclaimers out of the way. Let's get into the actual process and talk a little bit about this. So the basic premise here is honestly pretty straightforward when you think about it, right? Essentially what you do is you start, right? So if we go back to the idea of starting here with, let's say content mills or low paying gig work, how do you go from there to here at the top? It's generally a series of strategic steps where you build some credibility. That helps you land better clients. You repeat that process to build more credibility, land better clients, et cetera, et cetera. So in talking to a lot of these freelancers, what I learned was, they wrote 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 really, really, really great strategic guest posts for really targeted businesses, and then use those to work their way up this ladder, build that credibility so that they could go after these big name clients. That process, again, worked time and time again from the folks that I talked to. So the process here, there are sort of 7 steps that I identified from the interviews. Number 1 is defining the goal client. Number 2 is mapping out that credibility ladder. So you don't want to just go out and start pitching guest posts. You want to have a strategy and a plan for how you leverage those guest posts to get to that next level. Then you need to find incredible topic ideas. We're going to dig into that a little bit here in the workshop. We're going to talk about how to craft an unignorable pitch. We're going to talk about how to nail the work so that A, it gets published, and B, it's a great shiny example of your abilities as a writer. Number 6, we're going to talk about how to leverage that logo to land even better clients. And then ultimately, we're going to talk about how to repeat that cycle to land high-paying work. All right, so we have a lot of ground to cover. Let's get into it. So first of all, I call this a pitch ladder or a credibility ladder. It's really a simple concept, but the idea here is that you start with the dream companies that you have in mind. So obviously, in the examples that we talked that I talked about, right, you're talking about companies like Semrush or Shopify, HubSpot. Those are dream clients for a lot of folks. So if those are your dream clients, those go in sort of this top tier. These are the companies that we're ultimately trying to pitch. And then you sort of work backwards. Okay, so defining some companies that are maybe a little less well known. They're maybe smaller companies, maybe they're a little earlier stage, but they're going to be generally easier to pitch, meaning that they probably don't receive as many pitches. They're probably not quite as selective in the content that they publish. Now, that doesn't mean that they publish bad content. It just means that they're at a different place as a company, just like you are as a freelancer, right? And so then the idea here is really pretty simple, right? So you start here by pitching these companies in tier 1. You build, you land a guest post from one of these companies, which then you use to leverage to pitch these companies. Repeat the process as you work your way up the ladder. So that's the basic process that we want to use here. And by the way, I didn't just like sort of make up this idea of a pitch ladder. So this is Ankit Vora, which is one of the awesome freelancers that allowed me to pick their brain for this course. And Ankit shared basically this exact step-by-step process that he used. So first of all, just to give you context, if you're not familiar with Ankit and his work, he is a freelance writer. He writes for companies like Semrush and HubSpot, as I've alluded to many times, as well as Zapier, I think is one of his paying clients. And as him and I discussed his process and his trajectory, ultimately it all came back to this one breakthrough byline that he had, right? So he talked about this idea of writing this article. I'm not sure if you can see that text, but it's Triple Whale is the company. And he pitched a guest post to Triple Whale. And that was sort of his breakthrough, right? So he talked about how before that he was working, taking on Fiverr gigs and really doing a lot of like low paying work. But once he landed that byline guest post for Triple Whale, he was able to use that to kind of springboard into working for some of these other companies that I just mentioned. Ankit's story is also really compelling because he has sort of continued to use that strategy. So he's sort of mixed in some guest posts with some paid work. He's turned some guest post opportunities into paid work. He's really sort of worked this process over and over again in a really successful way. But the point being is that this is a prime example of how this process plays out, right? So you start with sort of that breakthrough byline opportunity. You use that to work your way up the ladder, and ultimately you can work your way towards these really high value, high paying clients. The first step, and in my opinion, probably the most important step in this whole process, is finding the right topic. Okay, so we'll get into an example here in just a second, but basically, I think choosing the right topic that you pitch for this guest post shows so much to the person that you're pitching, right? So it shows that you've taken the time to really learn about their business or their blog or their publication. You understand what they need, and that you're pitching something that's super highly relevant. So it's not just, hey, I'm going to scatter pitch 100 different people and see what sticks, right? Again, we're being super strategic. We're talking about building this ladder with maybe 5 or 10 targets. We're not pitching 1,000 different places. So we want to be really thoughtful about the topics that we're pitching. We want to be intentional about those. So 3 strategies that you can use here, and we'll look at an example again in just a second. One is to conduct a competitor gap analysis. Number 2 is to look for timely or seasonal topics. And then number 3, which I think is probably the most effective, is to combine those 2 approaches. So again, let's look at a real world example from one of the freelancers that I interviewed. Kiran Shahid. Again, if you're not familiar with her work, she works with companies like Sprout Social and Doc and HubSpot. So a lot of really well-known names in B2B SaaS. And she also used a very similar process as I'm describing here. And ultimately, she sort of started her whole journey with this guest post that she wrote for GetResponse. If you're not familiar with GetResponse, they do email marketing, and I think they have some other features. But basically what she did is she conducted sort of both a competitor analysis and also thought about sort of the seasonality of this space. And what she realized was that all of these other companies, and I think GetResponse included, had content about like Black Friday, email marketing for Black Friday, et cetera, but they didn't have anything about Cyber Monday, which is this, or Cyber Weekend, I guess is what it's called now. Cyber Weekend being sort of the online equivalent of Black Friday, right? If you're not from the US, it's like, crazy shopping weekend after Thanksgiving. So Cyber Weekend, and then on top of that, she realized, hey, that's also like a timely and seasonal topic because this is coming up. And so she pitched this to GetResponse. She said, hey, look, you've got this gap. You're talking about Black Friday, but you're not talking about Cyber Weekend. Oh, and by the way, it's coming up in, however many months. She pitched and published this post in 2022, and that ultimately helped springboard her career forward to take on these clients that we've been talking about. So that, in my opinion, is sort of a prime example of an irresistible topic that is super relevant, highly valuable to the place that you're pitching. Real quick on pitches, we don't have nearly enough time to go super in depth on pitching, but bad pitches have things like canned flattery, vague offers, really long setups. They include a bunch of irrelevant work samples that aren't valuable to the person that you're pitching. So try to avoid all of those things. Anatomy of a great pitch is, in my opinion, really simple, really straightforward. You have to start with that irresistible topic, right? The topic signals so much about the effort and the thought that has gone into the pitch. Number two, you need a correct level of detail. So the correct level of detail is going to depend on point three, which is highly relevant work samples. So if you're earlier in the process and you don't have very many great work samples to show, then I would recommend that folks include more detail about the article. So show a more detailed outline, explain how the article is going to come together, which topics you're going to cover, how you're going to approach it, really flesh out the details and the specifics as part of your pitch. If you have, number three, if you have more highly relevant work samples, then you can maybe just provide a basic outline and you don't have to go into quite as much detail. Okay, so then let's talk about nailing the work. So obviously, let's assume that you've found a great topic. You've sent a killer pitch. They say, heck yeah, write that thing. I want to publish it tomorrow. Hopefully they don't say tomorrow. But then the question is, okay, how do I make sure that I absolutely crush this so that they, A, like it, B, publish it, and C, it's a shining example that I can put in my portfolio. Okay, so for this piece, I actually did some additional interviews. I talked to folks on the other side of the fence, Tawny Sattler, Adam Rogers, current and former content marketing managers at Hotjar and Shopify. And basically I asked them, like, what do you look for like in a writer? When you get a pitch or when you get an article, whether it's paid or a guest post, how do you sort of evaluate it? What sets people apart? And a few key things here. Again, we don't have time to go super in depth on this stuff, but I just want to give you sort of the quick bullet points. What sets great content writers apart? Number one is communication. So it's sort of beyond the writing itself, right? It's just how well do you communicate as a freelancer, as a writer. Number two, the flow is paramount, right? The number one thing people look for is how well does this come together. Number three is the clarity. Is this straightforward? Is it valuable? Number four is the depth. Do you go beyond stating the basics and provide things like examples or data points, etc.? And number five is the collaboration. So being proactive in your collaboration with the editors or the content manager is going to be reviewing the content. Now let's talk about how to maximize the logo. Okay, so let's assume all of those things go well. You get your guest post, you pitch it, it goes great, you nail the work. How do you then turn that into better clients, more guest posting opportunities, etc.? 4 key strategies here. You're going to add to your LinkedIn, you're going to add to your portfolio, you're going to get a testimonial, and you're going to build on what you wrote or write about your process. Quick example of that, one of the freelancers I interviewed, Precious, he nailed this build on what you wrote concept, right? So after writing guest posts or paid posts, what he would do is then he would go to LinkedIn or go to his own website. He would write a post or a blog post or a teardown about how he went through that process. How did he craft it? What made it stand out? What made it good content? All of this stuff. And the incredible thing, in my opinion, for Precious is that process, building in public, so to speak, actually landed him more work, right? It sort of brought in those clients. So it was a marketing and lead gen opportunity. Plus he was showcasing the work that he was doing and leveraging that in future pitches. So he really built this like flywheel effect where he was writing posts, writing about the process of writing posts and then getting paid work and other guest post opportunities off the back of that. So really, really cool case study here with Precious. Okay, so that's the whole process, basically start to finish. From there, what we do is we sort of go back, right? So let's say we start on rung 1 of the ladder. We go through this process, we land that byline, we leverage that byline by adding it to our portfolio. Maybe we write about the process of pitching and writing for that client. And then we go back to that credibility ladder. We pitch the next tier of clients. Now we've got a better sort of trophy piece in our portfolio to showcase. So we're going to feel better about pitching a higher caliber of client. And then we can repeat that process again and again to ultimately go from those content mills and those low paying gigs to the high level clients and the big name brands. Okay, so building that credibility ladder step by step. Now, I want to take this moment to introduce my new course, which I'm just launching today. It's based on this whole process. It outlines all the details that we just went through, but it goes obviously a lot deeper into the process and really spells out the step-by-step system for repeating this same process that these freelancers use. So Breakthrough Bylines, the course is created for anybody who is watching this who wants to repeat that process used by top freelancers to really break through and work with those big name clients. So, if you feel like you don't have bylines to show, or you feel like your client work doesn't really showcase your true abilities, or you don't have the credibility that you need to land those top tier clients, this course is going to help you with a step-by-step system for going through this process on your own. Inside, there are 6 main modules. So the path to big name clients, we're going to talk about building that credibility ladder, crafting those unignorable pitches, finding incredible topics, nailing the work, leveraging the logo, and ultimately repeating the process. I am, again, just launching this course today. It's brand new. You can get a copy of this or check it out and learn a little bit more about it by going to jointofu.co/breakthrough. And I am offering a discount code for folks on this call. The coupon code is BB early. That's going to save you 33%. So it's normally $149. You'll get it for $99. Or you can also use that coupon code to sign up for Mofu, which is our subscription tier. That's normally $99 a month. You'll get your first month for $66 a month. Real quick, let me just show you what's inside here. So the direct course purchase includes the 6 core lessons. It also includes the credibility ladder template, the guest post pitch template, a target site database to help you build out your own credibility ladder. There's a workflow for conducting that content gap analysis and finding incredible topics. You get 6 full-length interviews with the top B2B SaaS writers that we talked about. So you can watch the actual interviews with those folks, hear directly from them how they built their portfolio and landed that work. And then you're also going to get those 2 full-length interviews with the B2B SaaS hiring managers, so you can learn a little bit more about what they're looking for and make sure that you really nail the work, nail the pitch, etc. As a bonus, you'll get 6 FAQ videos where I answer a lot of common questions like, hey, what's sort of the legality of using these logos, and how do I maximize the process to really help me take things to the next level. If you are interested in the Mofu membership, by the way, that's going to get you full access to the Breakthrough Bylines course, plus over $4,000 worth of additional resources. So I've got all kinds of lessons, templates, and systems. Inside Mofu, members get access to that full library, plus a private community, monthly live networking calls, any real-time feedback on the course, or anything else that's inside Mofu. So that's it for my quick pitch here. jointofu.co/breakthrough. Check out the course, check out Mofu. And again, don't forget the coupon code BB early. That offer does expire this Friday at midnight. So don't wait to use it if you're interested in the course. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks so much, y'all. Cheers.